One of the things we find at Interbike every year is there's products for racers, products for people who want to be racers, and products for people who just want to get to the top of the hill faster. I'm with Phil from Rotor. He's got just such a product. Rotor has their oval chain rings.
Yes.
Now, before you even get into the benefits of your chain rings, I have to ask you. In the 80s, I was riding BioPace. That went by the wayside. Why didn't that work, and why does yours work?
Well, I got two favorite stories, and not one of them is actually the first one hasn't got to do with cycling. First city in America that ever got electricity was Buffalo City. The same year they got the electricity, I think a couple of firefighters died. And you ask yourself, what the heck has this got to do with cycling? Well, it's got a lot to do with it, because these firefighters were fighting electrical fires with water, and they got electrocuted. See, if you don't understand the problem, you're never going to be able to come up with a solution. Rotor's the first company that understands that an electrical fire, which is pedaling an oval chainring, you need CO2, you need carbon dioxide to put that out. Don't understand the problem, you're never going to get a solution. And that's what it's about. And the difference between old systems and new systems, let's go for another mental image. You got two bikes. You got a time trial bike and you got a really heavy downhill bike. They're identical, right? No. Exactly. They've got nothing, you look at them, they look nothing alike, but they've both got pedals, they've both got handlebars, they've both got forks. That's the difference between a Q-ring and all previous generations of oval rings. They're kind of the same thing, but they're as different as they can be.
So the intention here is to get to the town line sprint faster, get to the top of the hill without being dropped.
Yep.
How do you do that?
Well, it's all about making your bike work for you. People think it's a weird thing for me to say, but the reality of the situation is that your round chainring is hurting your cycling performance. Now, previous oval rings, because they applied a solution to a false problem description, were a bigger problem of themselves. But a round chainring hurts your performance. It slows you down, creates lactates, and gives you major knee problems. The Q-ring is the first product which makes your bike work for you. It changes the resistance in the drivetrain according to what your legs are capable of doing at that moment in the pedaling stroke. So what does that mean? That means that when you're in your weakest, you're pushing a compact ring. And when you're strong, you're pushing a time trial ring. And that's what your leg can do. And that's actually why most people out there are riding compact. It's not about your strength, it's about your weakness and that you can't handle more at the dead spot. So we're giving you the best of both worlds.
So I think everybody has a pretty good idea about the dead spot you were talking about. How do you address that dead spot, and what's the benefit of what you're doing?
Well, what we're doing is we're reducing the chainring diameter at your dead spot. It's a point where your knee's bent, where your crank is vertical, and where you've got no real way to put power into the crankset. So what we do is we reduce the diameter there in a pretty smooth way with one aim. Get your leg out of that zone as fast as possible so it can spend more time where it's working effectively, which is what the benefit of the Q-ring is. It's about efficiency, it's about momentum, it's about a smooth pedal stroke. What this thing does is it gives you the perfect spin. So a lot of people ask, why did we make the Q-ring? And it's pretty simple. The concept is to make your bike's drivetrain work for you, the way your legs go. Because at the moment, you're pedaling your bike for what works for a round chainring. What that means on your bike, it's the difference between getting dropped on a climb and not. It's the difference of making it through a technical section and not. It's the difference between not being able to sprint at the end of the ride and not. What we're trying to do is we increase your efficiency and we make your cycling experience more enjoyable and more successful.
Now, I'm looking at a set of cranks.
Yeah.
But you make simply just rings that people can retrofit under their existing bike?
Yeah, we're not a company that agrees with the normal industry standard of you've got to buy all of our products to have one of our benefits. We specifically manufacture chain rings for everybody else's cranksets as much as possible. So if you've got SRAM, Campy, Shimano, FSA crank, you can take off your current rings, put on the Q rings, and the chances are you'll never go back to round rings.
One of the things that I also know you make is bottom brackets. And people get, as I said to you earlier, a little freaked out about changing their bottom bracket, servicing their bottom bracket. How have you addressed that?
It's pretty crazy. The market's come up with this brand new, it's kind of a marketing word, standard, a new open standard. What's happening is that many brands are coming up with their own standards, and it's making life confusing. It's making it hard to get the right crank. It's making most shops are not able to stock the crank you need for your bike, and we see this as a real problem. So we've gone against the flow. We're making a bold statement to the industry that enough is enough, and what we want is to allow the customer to install exactly the crank he wants on the bike he's got right now without any problems. And for that, we've developed a whole collection of bottom brackets. The things you can do now with our bottom bracket collection is if you've got an Italian or a BSA frame, you can now install our 30mm crank on there, so you can upgrade to BB30 type technology on your old frame. It also means that you can install a 24mm power measurement crank on your BB right frame or on your BB30 frame. We want to give you flexibility. We simply want to give you the product you want on the bike you've got.
Okay, some pretty innovative stuff. Where can people get more information?
Well, our main point for information is rotorbike.com. Our US distributor's got rotorbikeusa.com as well. They're the two best places to go for information. You'll get information on our products, how to set them up, and what the compatibilities are on each of the product pages there.
Excellent. Phil, thank you so much for joining us on Interbike TV.
Yep.
This is David for Interbike TV. We're in the Rotor booth learning more about performance.